Minutes after 7 o'clock, it's time for your world here on NTV. As always, a very good morning to you, and thank you for allowing us to kickstart your morning. This morning, we'd like to talk about something that matters to all of us, which is something we should have dealt with a long time ago, that is violence against women and girls in our society today. Because on Monday, Kenya joined the world in marking the International Day of the Girl Child, a day that is commemorated on the 11th of October every year to raise awareness about the gender-based discriminations that girls face in our society and to bring change to attitude towards girls. Locally, sexual and gender-based violence against women and girls remains a major problem, especially during the COVID-19 period, where cases have been on the rise, and the government's response to ensure that services to prevent gender-based violence and provide assistance to survivors has been termed by analysts as lacking. That's what we talk about this morning. Gender-based violence against women and girls in Kenya and across the world. It should not be happening. It's still happening even today. That's why we have to talk about it here on Your World this morning. And to help us put this into perspective and ask ourselves what should be done to actually put this to an end, or at least reduce the cases, I'm joined by Samson Orao. He's the Programs and Strategy Lead at Action Aid International Kenya. Good morning, Samson, and welcome to the show.
Good morning, Victor.
All right. And also joining me in studio this morning, Emma Otieno Olum. She's the Girl Project Officer at Pambazuko la Wanawake Magharibi. Good morning, Emma, and welcome to the show.
Good morning, Victor. It's Emma Atieno Olum.
All right. And also joining us this morning is Mercy Ochieng Ouma. She's a beneficiary of Out of Schools Girls Project. She'll be telling us her personal story and how this project has helped her. Good morning, Mercy, and welcome to the show.
Good morning, Mercy Ochieng Ouma.
All right. Allow me to start with you, Samson, because these figures are really startling. Let me start with the figures for Kenya for now. 301% increase in violence against girls and women. That was in the first 2 weeks of the pandemic. I can't even fathom how serious this issue is.
Well, Victor, that is something that is true and something that has been a great concern for us as Action Aid. With the coming of the pandemic, there are a lot of issues that emerged. One is that we were not ready as a country, and we didn't have any mechanisms to address GBV. So when the pandemic first exploded, and you know, women are contained, couples are contained in very stressful situations, the loss of jobs and lack of income, the fact that we had a lockdown, so you couldn't even travel, even if you are experiencing GBV, you couldn't even travel to run away from GBV. You couldn't go to the village because Nairobi was locked down, you know. And the other bit was also around the curfew, so that also meant that you couldn't leave beyond certain hours. And the entire world was now focusing on the pandemic. And forgetting about other attendant issues that needed to be addressed.
And I can't help but see that, I mean, COVID might have played a role in this, in increasing, but this is something that existed even before COVID-19. Let me just give you some scary figures here. Very staggering. 35% of women worldwide have experienced either physical or sexual intimate partner violence or non-partner sexual violence. Globally, 7% of women have been sexually assaulted by someone other than a partner. I can't help but think that we're not talking about this enough, Samson.
Victor, from the KDHS of 2014,
Yeah.
1 in every 3 women have experienced some form of GBV before they are 18. That tells you that we are dealing with a much bigger problem. We have cultures and attitudes that don't support women per se.
Yeah.
And whereas we would talk about the strides the country has made over the years,
Yeah.
we are still a long shot away from achieving gender parity and therefore dealing with attendant issues that come out of that.
Okay.
And some of these issues even emerge from the household because you begin seeing gender-based violence even from your upbringing as a child. And so we normalize it. And in some cultures you would see issues such as wife beating, quote unquote.
Is a norm.
Yeah, it is a norm, you know. And so growing up and you would see these cultures and you would hear about these patriarchy norms. And we forget about women. We actually make them invisible and we don't address issues that concern them. And so you saw that case that happened 3-4 years ago, My Address, My Choice.
Yeah.
Because even women who are walking here in town, who are boarding matatus, women who are using boda boda, women who are going through FGM, women who are going through child marriage, all those are forms of GBV. We've got to address it one way or the other.
Okay.
Now the pandemic came and found us totally unprepared. And these are things which had built up over time. And then now that has been worsened by the pressure that came out of COVID-19. With lack of a proper structured response mechanism to it, it was going to explode. It has exploded.
Okay.
In fact, GBV was now termed a shadow pandemic. Yes, GBV was termed a shadow pandemic that even attracted the attention of the president. And now policymakers and those of us from civil society now had to bring everybody to the discussion table. How do we address it?
Okay.
Yes.
And thankfully, someone is trying to do something about it, and among them is ActionAid. Just talk to us about the response that you are doing. What you're trying to do right at the moment, and especially in these 3 counties that you're working in.
So ActionAid has been around in Kenya since 1972.
Yeah.
And we, first of all, are apologetic about women's rights. We go the extra mile to defend and speak for women. And our signature is such that women and young people come first. We are running a project in a number of counties. We'll speak about the 3 counties, but we have a different approach, you know, mechanisms of working around women's rights issues, working around GBV, working around FGM, working around women's economic empowerment, women's political leadership, women's political participation, sexual violence, sexual gender-based violence that even exists in campus. And so in Garissa, in Homa Bay, and in Kilifi, we are working with adolescent girls and young women and giving them skills and capacity to be able to address issues around GBV, giving them skills and capacity to be able to address issues around their identity, to be able to speak about their rights, to be able to speak to law enforcement, be able to champion their issues to duty bearers and policymakers to ensure that we can create an environment that accommodates all of us.
Okay.
Because if these things start from the childhood and working with young girls, adolescent girls and young women, and we don't address their needs, we are growing a society that we are losing. At the end of it all, we won't have a generation to speak about. We shall have normalized GBV, and we will still be seeing these many, many cases, including what sadly we saw in Eldoret yesterday on TV about this lady who lost her life, the athletic lady who lost her life. We shouldn't have those things being normalized. And we shouldn't be sweeping them under the carpet and saying it's a statistic, because the statistic that duty bearers may speak about is a wife, is a sister, is a mother, is a girlfriend, but even beyond that is a human being that has their rights. as everybody else.
Okay. Allow me to get someone who has the nitty-gritty details of part of the solution, and this is Emma. Emma, good morning. Talk to us about just how you go about this project. I believe the name is Not Any Girl Project. Talk to us about how you go about it, especially in, that should be in Homa Bay.
Thank you, Victor. We've been implementing Not Any Girl Project in partnership with ActionAid and Nyarongi Women Network. Just as Samson has said, in Not Any Girl Project, it's called Not Any Girl Project because we are saying not even a single girl should undergo any form of violence. That is why it was called, dubbed Not Any Girl Project. And we've been doing this since 2019. We do this in 4 fronts. First, we deal with the girls themselves. We know the girls are in school. Where we work, the division where we work, we have 21 primary schools, public primary schools. We work in all these 21 public primary schools and 1 secondary school. In the schools, we have what we call girls' forums. These are just safe spaces whereby we have matrons. They're trained. These are teachers, female teachers who are trained. And just after classes, they just sit with the girls and they have a manual and they just talk about these issues of violence. We have life skills. The girls are able to speak and talk about any problem, any issue that they have. We encourage peer support. We talk to the girls about their rights, the right to education, the right to live free from violence, issues concerning basic needs that they should get from the parents. We also talk to them about their responsibility. Once the parent has availed education, then it's your responsibility to take it seriously, to study hard, to respect your teachers. So we talk about all these issues. Then we have the out-of-school girls and young women. These are girls and young women who did not get a chance to finish school. And quite a number of them maybe were married as child brides. And we know that you cannot separate the issue of violence and the issues of money issues in the houses. So we empower also these out-of-school girls and young women to know their rights, to know the issues, what constitutes violence. If I face violence, what should I do? Where should I go? The referral pathways. But we have also built their capacities because we want them to be economically not dependent. This is where the violence starts. Once they're dependent on their spouses, and then they every time it's money issues and people are fighting. And there was an explosion of these during the COVID-19 pandemic. A lot of violence around money issues. So we have them in psychosocial support groups, and we've carried out a number of capacity buildings for our out-of-school girls and young women. Then we deal with the entire community. We cannot talk about reducing violence, ending violence, if we do not involve every single person. So we have community forums, we have special forums just with men and our male youth. We talk about these issues. We talk about supporting our mothers and our sisters. We talk about parental responsibility. What constitutes these? We talk about child protection. How do we protect our children? We talk about the referral pathways. When something happens, where should we begin? How should we go about this? And then we have the duty bearers, because also we cannot talk about reducing violence or ending violence without involving the duty bearers. We have the medical personnel, we have the judiciary, we have the police, and of course we have the local administration, the chiefs, the assistant chiefs, we right from the village level. We have also been working with them. And when you're talking about duty bearers, we cannot fail to mention policy. In Homa Bay, we've really been working together with the county gender sector working group, which we've been working very closely on partnering with them on Homa Bay County sexual and gender-based violence policy. It's really at an advanced stage. And we hope that it will be launched next month. Because when you're talking about policies, these are the structures that are going to help to address this.
Yeah.
We are talking about funding. We are talking about issues of safe houses, safe spaces. Imagine when you are maybe defiled as a child, maybe it's by a father or somebody you live with, and you need to go back here.
Yeah.
Whereas you're pursuing justice. It's really not an ideal situation. So these are the issues that we are talking about when we are talking about the issues of policy, addressing issues like this.
Okay.
So that is what we've been doing in a nutshell.
Okay.
Yeah.
But really, I mean, that's a bit of a comprehensive analysis, and I mean, I like this, how structured it is, involving the authorities and all that. But maybe from where I sit, so far, has it worked? Do you see any improvement?
Yes, I can say we've seen any improvement because remember we started in 2019.
Yeah.
And then we had COVID. We had started going so well, then COVID came. And I think every one of us knows what happened. You've just said that GBV became like a shadow pandemic. But nevertheless, in the schools, the girls where we've been working, in the schools where we've been working, the girls are now, if you compare with the time that we started and now, they know their rights. They know issues of violence. The girls can speak out.
Yeah.
The girls can offer peer support to their peers. Because, you know, people are not the same. Some are more timid than others. Some are not able maybe to speak about their problems to maybe an adult, but they can tell a fellow child. And then we are able to go to that chain and help them. We had better retention of girls in schools because we're also addressing issues of child marriage. That is a form of violence because the age of consent is 18 years. And these are things that have still been taking place. When you talk about our out-of-school girls, and they've made very big strides because I said the economic dependency, the economic situation is really a driver of violence. Our out-of-school girls and young women we've been working with, they know what constitutes violence right now. Yeah. They know the referral pathways, but most importantly, they've been economically empowered. When we started, they were just waiting for the husband. Yeah. But right now, you find them with small business. Right now, they have village savings and loaning. They have money in those village savings and loan because they don't have credit facilities. This is where they get that small loan and they start that small business, selling tomatoes, selling, you know, small things to get some income, to supplement the income so that we can break that cycle of dependency, which is the beginning of violence. When you are talking about the community where we work, they know what constitutes right now. They know what constitutes violence. They know about the children's right. The issue of child labor exploded last year during the pandemic. You could find children loitering in the market, children selling in the market until 9 o'clock, and that is how they're exposed to violence because when they come from there and they're going home and these are children, you don't know what's going to happen on the road. And that is also a form of child abuse. So we've gone around all our communities. We've been speaking to the parents. We've been speaking to the fathers. Be close to your children. You need to protect your children. Your child cannot be a breadwinner. You need to be the breadwinner. Okay. Yeah. All right. And with the duty bearers, I said the SGBV policy, it's an advanced stage. We are also, right now, we started on the child protection policy of Homa Bay County. Okay. And in Ndewa Sub-County, we've also been working with the Ndewa Sub-County GBV working group, and we developed a teenage pregnancy sharing tool because we found out that there is a disconnect. When we come together and you're looking at issues around teenage pregnancy and the services that we need to provide for the girls, we found there was a disconnect. Disconnect in the numbers, disconnect in the services. So we sat down and said, what can we do to bridge this gap so that these services are, we can be able to offer a comprehensive service that will be able to address this issue. So we came up with a tool which we are piloting at Ndewa Sub-County Hospital. And once we are done with that piloting, then we'll be able to distribute it to the other departments, right from the local administration to the hospital, to the police, so that we can have a comprehensive, it also helps us in data collection.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Emma. Allow me to bring in Mercy because she's actually a beneficiary of this. Mercy, just talk to us about the challenges that, I mean, Emma's brought the issue of poverty and really struggles at home. Talk to us about the challenges that people like you have gone through and how, of course, the program has helped you.
Yes, thank you very much. As you can say, I'm Mercy. I represent young women and out-of-school girls. I got married when I was 17 years because of a lot of challenges. My parents have died and I have nobody who is willing to take me to school. So I have decided to get married when I was 17 years. When I got married, we have been passing a lot challenges. So one is gender-based violence. Gender-based violence is the most we can discuss here. When the project come, project Not Any Girls project, we have nothing. And now we have business. We have started a lot, small kind of jobs, business. I have with me, I started a stationery. So what I can tell young mothers or young women is what brings gender-based violence is lack of money. If you have money, you cannot get that.
Okay.
And another thing, a lot of challenges girls out of school that are passing through is maybe early marriage, like me, early marriage, early pregnancy. So what I can say is that if you are a young woman, yeah, if you are a young woman or you are out of school girls, hukumaliza shule kama mimi,
yeah,
mimi niliacha shule kwa kidato cha pili. So I'm here to represent a young woman, and I have what I can have in my hand because I have my own business.
Asante.
Yeah.
All right. But if I can come back to you, Samson, on this, because really, I mean, we've spoken about the issue of violence and all that, but I mean, the challenges that even lead up to this violence are really a lot facing women and girls, issues of discrimination, issues of women land rights, unpaid care work, women economic empowerment. How do we still bring this in the picture to try and sort of add like a proactive approach?
Victor, we have to be honest as a nation and say that there are so many challenges that women face that are not necessarily spotlighted. When you hear Mercy speak, and even when you heard Emma speak, you would see challenges that exist at the counties, but that reflect what this nation has been experiencing. The lack of economic ability means that even when you are survivor of GBV, you would not necessarily run away because this perpetrator probably owns, you, quote unquote. And so they have the economic means. So you can't run away, and there are no social protection mechanisms that address that. When you speak about unpaid care and domestic work, which is something which all of us normalize and say the girl's place belongs to the kitchen. Unfortunately, in 2021, there are some, communities and even people, men like me, who still have those perspectives and attitudes. Those become challenges that we have to face. When you speak about women land rights, and you see several women who are disinherited of land, and who in the process now become victims of GBV, they get beaten up, some of them get killed because the husband died, the brothers are now struggling, the brothers of the husband are struggling to chase this woman and her children away from the property. That becomes a problem. Now, how do we address this? Where is the policy, first of all?
Yeah.
How do we engage on policy issues? When you're speaking about the Matrimonial Property Act, when you're speaking about the law of succession, for example, where does this protect women? The Sexual Offences Act of 2006 that people have been debating around, do we need to amend it? Do we need to make the law more punitive? We see sometimes people walking scot-free. You've gone through a rape, you have gone to court, the court itself is not addressing your needs, it's not, the environment itself does not protect you. Sometimes you have to stand and face your abuser in open court. How do we address those kinds of issues? You know, those kinds of issues become very much problematic. When you see violence perpetrated by official law enforcement, the police, what we saw at the Likoni ferry at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, what the evictions that were taking place in Nairobi East the other day, you know, and when even what we are seeing around Laikipia and the clashes today, women getting affected by that, and we are saying this is sanctioned law enforcement that is now abusing human rights, and therefore women now bear the brunt of the force of such kind of response. How do we address these kinds of issues? When you speak about economic empowerment, and we are saying that we have made advances as a country, that we are speaking about gender parity today, we are speaking about a $1 trillion shilling economy, and we are saying we are doing all these wonderful projects. But women, who are, you know, the market women, the one who sell on the street, the one who get arrested by Kanjo every so often, where are they? Where do we speak about these kinds of issues? How are women able to even access credit, you know, loans and so on from formal institutions without some form of security? Yet, we are speaking about affirmative action funds, we're speaking about women enterprise fund, we're speaking about Youth Enterprise Development Fund, we're speaking about NGAF, we're speaking about Uwezo Fund. But where are the women in this kind of conversation? How many of them can access? And then the other big issue is just also about response, the healthcare response. We're saying free maternity, that you can walk into a hospital and deliver. We are saying free post-rape care, you know, forms, free P3 forms. Are these things free, or do we still see cases of I walked into a hospital somewhere and the doctor said, before I can even write for you a P3, I need 300 shillings. You know, how do we address these kinds of issues? Because the law could be there. And the policy could be there, even though there are issues around policy gaps. But the implementation and how it gets addressed, that's where the problem is.
If I'm getting this correctly, there are, resources, there are institutions like the police and the authorities who should be helping. But because of the way they address these issues, they end up perpetuating. Is this where we start to see even victims of violence going to police stations and they're ridiculed?
A lot of that is happening today. I mean, si mlikuwa mnapigana tu, huyo si mbwana yako mnaleta hii siasa hapa kwa nini? We've had such a kind of case. This woman has gone to report, and the police at the station is ridiculing them. And therefore, they turn back. Where do they go when, you know, the official law enforcement has said no? And that's why we are speaking about issues around gender desks. I have gone to the police station to report this case. My abuser, male in this case, now comes in and says, this was my wife. I mean, we love each other. Hii ilikuwa tu, you know, domestic issue ya kinyumbani, let's go and sort out. And the police will tell you, mama, get out of here, you go and sort it out with your husband. When you speak about the informal justice systems, for example, we are saying, okay, the village, the elders, the councils of elders that go sort this issue at home. The power dynamics you know, the power relations in that perspective, in that environment, will not allow the woman to experience her rights.
Okay.
They will most likely, in fact, often 90% of the cases, the perpetration will continue.
Before I turn to Emma, what does this stigmatization do to the ability of the victim to even come forward and report?
It makes it worse. One of the issues is that the victim starts self-stigmatizing because they have no recourse to go to. The other bit means that other women, other victims who are watching will now also not be able to go because they will see so-and-so walked, my neighbor walked, and they got no help. We went to the courts were too expensive. The language used in the court was too formal. I couldn't understand it. At the same time, engaging in this process means that the police did not, you know, do the proper documentation, evidence collection, and so on. Witness protection that's still lacking, neighbors, and all these things. So it means that we'll still keep seeing more abusers coming in. They're emboldened because they know this case may not go far. I can buy my way out. And we are normalizing a situation that we shouldn't ideally be speaking about. We shouldn't even be having this kind of conversation in 2021 today. But sadly, this is where we are at. And Human Rights Watch is saying plus 300%. Victor.
301%.
Yes. Victor, this is 2021. This is not 1821. This is 2021. Where are we as a country? Where are we as a people?
And for most of them to actually get justice, given the situation, the picture that you've just painted, is when we see actually Women Rights Network take up the issue strongly. I mean, Emma, you are part of the Pambazuko la Wanawake Magharibi. Just talk to us about the role of these Women Rights Networks in try and bridging the gap that is there, helping reduce the stigma, addressing even the men who actually, by the way, are the major perpetrators of this.
Thank you, Victor. As Pambazuko la Wanawake Magharibi, which we call Palawama, we work with CBOs. These are women network, these are youth groups, not forgetting the people with disability, who, by the way, experience, I don't know whether I would say the most, but more violence, because they are more vulnerable to this. And as Pambazuko la Wanawake, these are women networks. They are on the ground. They are at the grassroots. So they are able to, they have, how would I say, more reach, because they are on the ground and they are on the grassroots. Let me talk about, for example, Nyarongi Women Network we've been working with. These are women spread across the whole area where we've been working, and their role has really been important, because when we are talking about the issue of violence, we start with the girls. The girls need support. They are able to offer this support at the grassroots level, at the household level, because I say the matrons are helping the girls at school. But once they're out of school, they are not with the teacher anymore. Now they're with the Women Rights Network, who are able to help these girls. They're able to address these issues right from the family level, because now they know what constitutes violence. They know the referral pathways. They are able to help other people. And when I talk about other people, we're talking about other women. We are talking about even the men that you're talking about, because one of the drivers of violence is also lack of information. I don't know that I'm an adult man. I'm not supposed to have a sexual relationship with a child. A child is anybody under the age of 18. So the Women Network are able to disseminate this information and give the right information, so that the people, the potential perpetrators or the potential survivors, have this information beforehand. Also, the Women Network, when you're talking about policy, we've been doing this together, pursuing the policies. because the policies are the ones that really are addressing
Yeah.
the root cause of the issues. It's very important to involve the potential beneficiaries, the ones who are going to benefit from the policy.
Okay.
And these are the women, right from the grassroots, because they are at the grassroots,
Okay.
the beginning of where all these problems are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Masi, kama naweza kupata wazo lako kama mtu ambaye amefaidika na hii program, ni nini ambacho unadhani kinafaa kama kubadilika ama kuongezwa zaidi katika ile program ndio wengine kama wewe wazidi kufaidika?
Yes, what I can say as a young woman who are outsider, who are outside, I can tell you that no one is poor. You can get even handicraft. You can if loaning and saving, that's a business. We have so many things you can get money. Even kupalilia samba, unaweza palilia samba alafu uweke mboga. Unaweza enda mpaka uuze hiyo upate pesa yako. Like what I can say is gender-based violence is caused by lack of money. We utaomba mpaka kibiriti. Every woman has, yani, very important is she has his own money. That is good.
Okay.
Yes.
Asante. Samson, if I can come back to you, I want us to really now that we've established the problem and where the gaps are, I want us to talk about what needs to change, really. And I'd like to highlight that report by the Human Rights Watch, and they said the government's failure to ensure services to prevent gender-based violence and provide assistance to survivors under its COVID-19 response measures facilitated an increase in sexual and other violence against women and girls. Talk to us about what really needs to change from the bigger picture.
Thank you, Victor. One is that we've got to have policy. We have laws, but we have to implement them. And when there are policy gaps, then now let's talk about how do we beef up the gaps in the policy? How do we ensure that the Protection Against Domestic Violence Act of 2011 gets implemented? The Sexual Offences Act of 2006 gets implemented. The Anti-FGM Act, let's have policy. Number two is let's speak about financing. We are saying these wonderful things, but where is the infrastructure? Where is the money? The funding gap is so huge, and that's why organizations such as ActionAid are now coming in to complement, working in solidarity with survivors of GBV, working in empowerment programs such as Not Any Girl and others that we are running, and of course engaging advocacy campaigns with the government, the duty bearers, the communities, social movements to ensure that we address this issue at grassroots level. The other bit is around gender desks. Whereas many people have been speaking and saying different positions, having different positions around this, it is still such a critical and necessary thing that we have gender facilities within the police stations, within the hospitals as well. And that these gender facilities get manned by people who are trained on gender issues, who have the appropriate language and who can speak about, gender issues in totality without victimizing, without victim shaming. The other bit is around strengthening the women's rights networks, because when we are able to speak in totality as communities, we can address a problem from where it emerges. But as long as we are still speaking about it here in Nairobi and the capital cities and leaving the ordinary woman, leaving the girls behind, we are still perpetuating this issue, and that becomes such a huge obstacle as well. Funny thing is that the Generation Equality Forum, Kenya committed last year, June 2021, to end GBV by 2026.
That's just how many years? 5 years away.
It's about 5 years away. 4 years now, because we're almost crossing into the year. In 2019, we also committed to end FGM by 2022. 2022 is just 3 months away. Now, how do we speak about these issues? Kenya is leading the GBV Action Coalition at the Generation Equality Forum, alongside the UK and Iceland. And we've made a number of commitments around data, around financing, around social equity, but how do we proceed towards making these things a reality?
Okay.
We are happy that we have duty bearers, even the president speaking about these issues, but we'd also want more leaders to come and speak about it. Okay. Because you hear Emma saying that, you know, we say we are not aware. And that's why the Women's Rights Network, like Pambazuko la Wanawake that we are with here in studio, and others that we work with, like Sauti ya Wanawake Pwani, the Isiolo Women's Rights Network, you know, that's ActionAid's mode of service delivery, working through social movements and communities. When they're able to work with communities and speak about these issues and bring the men in the conversation, we'll be able to address the problem.
Okay.
GBV is also happening in campus, and ActionAid is running a program called Campus Me Too, where we are seeing a lot of statistics about, you know, students, female students who've gone through GBV and, you know, sex for degrees. I think you've heard about that.
Yes, a lot of it.
These kinds of issues, and even just this being perpetrated by the power dynamics, the lecturer, so marks for grades and so on. Those kinds of things are things which we have to have honest conversations around them.
Okay. Let me just cross over to Emma. Emma, because of the nature of the stigmatization that we spoke about earlier on, even the same authorities that we have to go and report these issues, we can't trust them. Talk to us as someone who is always on the ground. Other than that, what really needs to change?
That is really a big problem, the relationship between the community and the police. Sometimes even getting someone to report a case at the police, because of that relationship, it's still not where it should be. I think we need to do more as duty bearers so that the community can be able to interact with us and give the service that you're able to give. That relationship is still fractured. A lot of community members are still afraid to go to the police station to report a case, because when they just hear going to the police station, that is already, it's already a big chip on their shoulders that they have. That is one of the reasons why we've been doing this project with the duty bearers. We've had several trainings, and we talk to them. What can you do? I remember even the community forums, we've had police from the gender desk when we go to the community forums, because we want to create that relationship whereby the communities, the community members are comfortable enough to be able to interact with our duty bearers so that they can get that service. All the time we've been with the chiefs, the assistant chiefs, and we point at them. When these things happen, there are cases that you can start at the chief, but the criminal cases, we have to go to the police. So these are some of the issues we've been trying to address, so that we are able to at least move forward with these issues.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Kabla tukamilishe, naomba Masi utupe wazo lako kwa wale ambao wanakutazama leo, pengine wanapitia changamoto kama zile ambazo umepitia na wanatamani kwamba huenda siku moja watapata suluhisho kama vile wewe ulipata. Naomba wazungumzie.
Yes. What I can tell my fellow young mothers is wajikaze tu. Life ni kustruggle, hakuna kitu rahisi. Ukipata yako, hiyo ni yako. Na nataka kuambia wafungulie business, wafungulie biashara zao. Unaweza anza hata na kupalilia. Ukipalilia unaweka mboga. Ukishapata hiyo mboga unaenda kuuza, utapata pesa yako. Yeah.
Okay, asante. Emma, definitely we cannot even exhaust all that we need to talk about on this show, but I'll give you a minute to just give us your closing remarks.
As Noted Girl project that we have been doing in Homa Bay County, we have the project has been able to put into place several things. For sustainability, we talked about working with the Women Network The women network are there. They are not moving to any place. So they will continue doing the work that they've been doing. But like the way we've been talking about, we need to do more as duty bearers, as government. When it comes to funding, there's really very little funding for programs that are addressing the issues of sexual and gender-based violence. In Homa Bay County, for example, when you talk about the issue of safe spaces that I was talking about, we only have one safe space in Homa Bay, and that is in Homa Bay town. As like those who are in the sub-county, we do not have anything. We also need to address the issues of people with disability, because during the project lifetime, we've come across these cases. People with disability face a disproportionate when it comes to violence, because they are more vulnerable than the rest of us. But you find that even getting registered with National Council for People with Disability is still a big challenge. For example, in DIWA, for assessment, you have to go to Homa Bay. It's hard enough. Okay. Going to Homa Bay is hard enough. We still need to do more. Okay. Bring these services closer to the people. Because without that registration, you cannot get any government incentive, because you need to have that number to be registered to get any incentive. So in a nutshell, as a community, we still need to do more as a country. Talking about child protection, we've been talking about these issues, parental responsibility, parental neglect, child protection, issues around not normalizing violence. We should not do this, but we still need to have these conversations right from the grassroots levels, right at the household levels, in our spaces, in our churches, in our workplaces, because we also have violence in the workplaces. Everywhere we still need to have this conversation.
Thank you.
What can you do and what can I do? Okay,
thank you. Very comprehensive, but allow you, Samson, to close this conversation for us with your parting shot, your final word.
Victor, GBV is a pandemic that is living with us today. We have to come up as a country together to speak about it. Unpaid care and domestic work, that's where GBV begins, because we are normalizing situations and saying that's a woman's job. We've got to speak around that. Case documentation, do we have a database? You know, how do we follow up on these kinds of issues to make sure that cases that are reported are actually documented properly and someone can follow through? But beyond that, where are the statistics? We are having 301% from Human Rights Watch. Where is official government data? And where can, you know, users of this data go to, like a repository of data where we can now, you know, get the right statistics to address some of these issues? Financing as well, there's still a huge gap, a huge budget deficit. And we are thankful that there's NGAF, you know, and the affirmative action funds, but they are at that, you know, high level, the super level. We need to devolve these funds and bring it right at the county level, and then now the women are able to access it. Male involvement, where are the men in this conversation? Culture has brought upon us patriarchy, and we are normalizing violence right from childhood, you know. Go and play TV as your sister fetches water. Sit properly for the woman, the man can sit anyhow. And therefore, my dress, my choice, these kinds of issues come up. Where are the men? Where are the male voices? The engagement with students and the student unions. There's a lot of GBV that happens in campuses. How do we speak around campus environment, gender-based violence? And I know some universities like Egerton have begun different initiatives, Lads for Lads. These things are things that we need to embrace. We need to have a conversation. And I'd invite you, Victor, as a media. We are looking up to you for this conversation as well, that we can close it. And then we'll have a country that respects human rights and women's rights.
Thank you very much, Samson. A very comprehensive and a good way to end this conversation. We've been talking about violence against girls and children and women in our society today and what needs to change. We hope you have enjoyed this discussion just as I have. Many thanks to my guest this morning, Samson Orao, Programs and Strategy Lead at Action Aid International Kenya. Emma Otieno Olum, she's the Girl Project Officer, Pambazuko la Wanawake Magharibi, and Mercy Ochengo, of course, who is a beneficiary of what Emma and Samson have been doing. From me, it's goodbye for now. We have to cross over to another bigger event, so please tune in.